Glenn Greenwald was invited to meet the press this past Sunday, and he was invited to talk about the early morning breaking news that happened on Sunday about Edward Snowden's flight from Hong Kong to Moscow. And David Gregory was interviewing Glenn Greenwald, and he had this to say to Glenn. First, what he did was, he started the interview asking Glenn Greenwald some questions about Snowden and the leaks, but he was sort of kind of building up to something. And I included a little bit of the previous question in this, so you could see him building up to this. And then he unleashes the final question to Greenwald. And this is what everyone's talking about. Let's listen.
You are a polemicist here. You have a point of view. You are a columnist. You're also a lawyer. You do not dispute that Edward Snowden has broken the law, do you?
No, I think he's very clear about the fact that he did it because his conscience compelled him to do so, just like Daniel Ellsberg did 50 years ago when he released the Pentagon Papers and also admits that he broke the law. I think the question, though, is how can he be charged with espionage? He didn't work for a foreign government. He could have sold this information for millions of dollars and enriched himself. He didn't do any of that either. He stepped forward and, as we want people to do in a democracy, as a government official, learned of wrongdoing and exposed it so we could have a democratic debate about the spying system. Do we really want to put people like that in prison for life when all they're doing is telling us as citizens what our political officials are doing in the dark?
Final question for you, but I'd like you to hang around. I just want to get Pete Williams in here as well. To the extent that you have aided and abetted Snowden, even in his current movements, why shouldn't you, Mr. Greenwald, be charged with a crime?
Pause it. He just asked Glenn Greenwald, to the extent that you have aided and abetted Snowden, even in his current movements, why shouldn't you, Mr. Greenwald, be charged with a crime? Now, the reason I included the previous question is because all those things that David Gregory mentioned, that Greenwald is, a columnist with a point of view, right. A blogger, I think he mentioned. If not, if he didn't mention it there, it's certainly been mentioned that Glenn Greenwald is a blogger, a lawyer. But never is it mentioned that Glenn Greenwald is a journalist. And then David Gregory goes ahead and asks Glenn Greenwald, a journalist, regardless of what David Gregory thinks, he asks him, why shouldn't he be prosecuted? And to Glenn Greenwald's credit, he obviously, I don't even have to, there's no surprise here. Glenn Greenwald completely owns David Gregory. Let's listen.
I think it's pretty extraordinary that anybody who would call themselves a journalist would publicly muse about whether or not other journalists should be charged with felonies. The assumption in your question, David, is completely without evidence, the idea that I've aided and abetted him in any way. The scandal that arose in Washington before our stories began was about the fact that the Obama administration is trying to criminalize investigative journalism by going through the emails and phone records of AP reporters, accusing a Fox News journalist of the theory that you just embraced, being a co-conspirator with felonies for working with sources. If you want to embrace that theory, it means that every investigative journalist in the United States who works with their sources, who receives classified information, is a criminal. And it's precisely those theories and precisely that climate that has become so menacing in the United States. Is why the New Yorker's Jane Mayer said investigative reporting has come to a standstill, her word, as a result of the theories that you just referenced.
Well, the question of who's a journalist may be up to a debate with regard to what you're doing. And of course, anybody who's watching this understands I was asking a question. That question has been raised by lawmakers as well. I'm not embracing anything, but obviously I take your point.
So Glenn Greenwald then tweets out, after he's done with his interview with David Gregory, who needs the government to try to criminalize journalism when you have David Gregory to do it? Now, Meet the Press is still going on. Some production assistant or producer is looking on Twitter, obviously, and sees Greenwald tweet this, tells David Gregory. So David Gregory responds on air.
You know, part of the tactics of this and part of the debate is frankly around journalism, and Glenn Greenwald referenced it when I asked him a question about whether he should or will face charges, which has been raised. And, I want to acknowledge there is a debate on Twitter that goes on online about this, even as we're speaking. And here's what Greenwald has tweeted after his appearance this morning. Who needs the government to try to criminalize journalism when you have David Gregory to do it? And I want to directly take that on, because this is the problem with somebody who claims that he's a journalist, who would object to a journalist raising questions, which is not actually embracing any particular point of view. And that's part of the tactics of the debate here, when in fact lawmakers have questioned him. There's a question about his role in this, the Guardian's role in all of this. It is actually part of the debate. Rather than going after the questioner, he could take on the issues, and he had an opportunity to do that here on Meet the Press.
And I think he did.
That's exactly what he did. And the point of his response, just to add really briefly, is that the question should not even be raised in the practice of investigative journalism. That is the point.
Exactly.
And not only did Gregory keep pushback on that, he actually included the Guardian in that.
Yes.
Not only is the Guardian's an august newspaper.
All these organizations, these mainstream American news organizations, have been pushing the Guardian, a UK paper.
Whatever the case may be.
A foreign. But listen. That wasn't just, even if we just take David Gregory for him saying, just part of the debate, I was asking a question like any good journalist would. He wasn't just asking a question. He consistently set up that question in a way to put Glenn Greenwald in bad light. It wasn't just a straight up non-partisan, without trying to push a certain agenda question. He consistently, in the extent you aided and abetted Snowden as everything but a journalist. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I mean, Chuck Todd, after what we just heard, said, after all that, wondered, how much was Greenwald involved with Snowden? Did he have a role beyond being a receiver in this information? This is not the issue here. The issue is what's in those documents. The fact that the American government, under the NSA, is spying on Americans. I mean,
data mining. I mean, I don't know if I'm getting into the specifics. I'm not sure about that word. I think that more challengingly, unfortunately, some people who are very credible have cast some doubt on some aspects of this report. But yes, whatever the case may be, that is what the issue is. And I think the other really important thing there is listen to what Todd said. He said, did he do anything besides just receive this information? And as Greenwald and as anybody else, Jane Mayer, anybody who knows anything about this field, you don't just receive information as a journalist. You don't just sit there and someone goes, oh, you know what? I have this aspect of government abuse or corporate abuse. Here, allow me. Would you care to receive this? This is a process by which you cultivate sources to get information,
yes,
which is the press's job.
Which is funny.
And the fact that that's even being brought up in the discussion is really almost analogous to somebody in a conversation basically saying, like, well, some people have said that, frankly, like, you deserve it for being sexually assaulted because you were wearing a skimpy dress. It's a disgusting, amoral, ridiculous, and insane point, and it has no role in the discussion of sexual assault, just as this has no role in a discussion on even Snowden's charges. Whether you want to get a debate about that, if you start getting into did he do something beyond just receive it, every single investigative journalist doesn't just receive things. It's insane.
And I mean, on top of that, what we discussed before, earlier in the show, how many other leaks have happened, whether it was a source that one of these mainstream organizations, I mean, no one had a problem when the New York Times basically unveiled the kill list and all the other the information surrounding the Osama raid and all those other things that they leaked that were leaked to them by their source. No one had a problem with that. Just yesterday, how did we find out about Edward Snowden's passport? Who leaked that information? I don't see anyone questioning whether that was fine or not. It's just unbelievable that someone who parades himself around as a journalist, like David Gregory does, would ask another journalist, why shouldn't he be charged with a crime?
That's a pretty stunning question. Yeah, nothing more really.
I mean, it's clear that David Gregory is just not a journalist at this point. I mean, if anyone is just espousing their very clear, what did he say again about Greenwald? You have very something about his.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. He said he used the phrase aiding and abetting. Now, Anderson Cooper.
No, but before aiding and abetting, what I'm trying to get to is he said how Glenn Greenwald had a very clear opinion about all this. And I mean, I think David Gregory has a very clear opinion on this. I actually saw David Gregory a few days earlier on Jay Leno on The Tonight Show talking about this. And him and Jay musing about Edward Snowden is a traitor and should be sent here right away. And we don't understand why we just don't go get the guy and bring him over here and put him in jail. I mean, that sounds like you have a very clear-cut opinion on this, David Gregory. You're not just wondering these things anymore. I think you know what you're saying, and I think you have a very clear-cut opinion on all this. Are you a journalist, David Gregory? Huh? What? Huh?